Hey, everybody, and welcome back. It took me a little bit longer today to figure out what I was going to talk about tonight because I had two different things that were kind of eating at me that I thought I would kind of expand upon and kind of give you my personal opinions about and see what you guys thought about this as well. So, as always, give me your personal feedback, some of your experiences and stories that you've been through because it's always good to get this stuff kind of out there in the open and get it talked about. We don't want to just. I've had people tell me, look, other people talk about these different things, or it always sounds like it's complaining or whining when you bring up certain things. But the reality is, if you don't bring certain subjects to light and have people become aware of it more and more, then there's never any chance of anybody doing anything about it. You effectively have to get people tired of it and get them frustrated about it just as much as you are, or you're never going to affect any real change. And that all starts at a grassroots level of just at least being able to have a conversation about it. So, although there may be people that disagree with that and they just like to live a happy floating existence where they don't acknowledge any of this stuff, for the rest of us, it's very real. And tonight, I want to focus on kind of the false allegations of a certain kind, if you know what I mean. Not just necessarily SA, but allegations of harassment that have been coming to light over the years, especially with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni whole case thing that has gone on, where he eventually provided receipts and proof of what all was going on from his end and exposed the whole thing to where it's abundantly clear that he was essentially getting railroaded and then falsely accused simply because why not? And not failing to acknowledge on my part that obviously over the years there have been times where men have crossed the line with women, but what has now happened is the pendulum has swung completely the other way, and false accusations have been something that has become a weaponized uh, thing that's used against men in particular, where if you don't agree with something, if you attempt to challenge something, if you actually irritate or frustrate somebody, or they decide they want to have some form of revenge on you, they can just simply make a false allegation against you. And although slander and libel are things that are obviously completely illegal, making false police reports are completely illegal, attempting to use it to extort somebody, in the case of a certain famous baseball player, is illegal, and the woman who attempted to do that has now been charged with fraud. But in these cases, such as the one with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, it's lawsuits. You have to go to civil court if you're going to get any form of justice out of it. And if you don't have enough money to mount a significant lawsuit against somebody, what are you even going to do? What is available to you to be able to rectify the situation really is something that we all have to think about. And in doing a little bit of research on it, I've discovered that although most states maintain that committing perjury and giving false statements and doing things of that nature, especially involving crimes like this, is against the law, the punishment for doing something false like that in no way matches what is going to happen to the person who is falsely accused, where they won't lose their freedom, lose their career, have their reputation irreparably damaged. And I don't want to just touch on that. I want to touch on maybe some ideas of what those of us that go through this, and maybe, I mean, even if you're a woman, you could go through this too, but this is generally something that is happening to men. But how do we combat this? Maybe not even on a legal level, because we may not be able to completely ever get the laws changed or anything swung back in a way to where if you get caught doing this, you should do jail time. You tried to destroy someone's life. You attempted to put them in jail. You attempted to ruin their career. You tried to ruin their reputation irreparably, which, I mean, as most people know, when news stories are done wrong, there's very rarely a retraction. So pretty much everybody that is gets falsely accused in these particular areas are screwed. So to kind of sum this up, it's very, very clear that if you're not very, very careful, you could get easily accused of something that you didn't do. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't dirtbags out there for that are committing crimes and doing things that they absolutely shouldn't be doing. We're referring to men that have found themselves in situations where the opposing party, usually women, are doing reputation destruction. I went through a situation myself with this where I dated somebody briefly who had tried to engage in reputation destruction when I broke up with her. This was quite a few years back. Thankfully, this, like my story with all the trouble with the marriage and divorce thing. I know some of you might say, why in the world would you date anybody after that? Well, it takes a while to kind of wake up and get red pilled. And this was over the course of the years where that was sort of something that was coming to light. So I didn't know about it then, but I was learning about it at the time, began to recognize the signs of it. And thankfully, when this person attempted to engage in reputation destruction against me, they were doing all sorts of insanity where they were basically creating false accounts on social media and then harassing people that I worked with everything from independent film to my business to family members. People that, for the most part, I didn't even introduce her to. She just figured out a way to get in there and try and harass them. And this was not nearly the nightmare that it was during my divorce. And as I said, I was becoming red-pilled during this period of time, which is part of the reason that led me to breaking up with her. And then, as many of you will understand, it reveals who in the world you're spending time with when you eventually put a boundary on them, tell them no, which is what I started to do during the relationship. I started to put boundaries and say, no, I'm not going to go down this road and do this. I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with that. And it eventually got to a point where I said, okay, I think we're done. A breakup's going to happen. This is it. I'm not comfortable with any of this. Then the real insanity started. The reputation destruction started. The false allegations started flying. And granted, they were not nearly as severe as what other people are dealing with. We're not talking on the level of SA or anything like that, but enough to attempt to damage your reputation and make your life very hard as much as possible. And it took threats of essentially being sued and dragged into civil court and having an attorney contact this individual and then potentially threaten to send stuff to have her served for the suit at her place of employment. That scared the heck out of her, and she just decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and back off on all of this. So it took all of that to get that straightened out, and it was a real learning curve for me. In the course of my story of getting red-pilled, it wasn't just the marriage thing. It was over time I began to realize that the whole dating system, just the way everything is in the culture, was just a giant mess. And as I said, I was slowly getting red-pilled coming into content where I was realizing what was going on out there. I didn't even know what hookup culture was at the time, but I was learning about it. And thankfully, I got out of that situation and was able to do some form of damage control and then didn't fall for something like that again after that. So for each one of us, there's a progressive learning curve. And there are guys out there, unfortunately, that are so extreme in the red pill community, they don't even allow for a learning curve. They just think that you should just be born knowing this, not realizing all of us are figuring this out at a certain pace. So for those of you that have figured that out in a current relationship or even a recent one, it's not your fault per se up to a certain point that you were fooled. The other person put on a front and they deceived you up to a certain point. By the time you became aware of it and started acting on it and just got educated enough to realize what you had to do about it, then's the time to do something. There's no shame in that. You're learning along the way. So as long as you learn and don't repeat that same situation, there's nothing wrong with learning from your mistakes. You just don't want to be repeating them over and over again. So for me, that was another point along the way where I had learned, and thankfully I wasn't married to anybody or didn't have kids with anybody. It was just a dating situation that wasn't even that long of a dating situation. And as I became aware of things and, kind of just good boundaries through other people that were content creators at the time, and I was beginning to really started making me think about it, I began to realize, okay, I need to change some things here, and I'm not happy with the relationship. And I already knew I wasn't, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So the whole false allegations department, the only thing I would say about this, maybe some of you can chime in and tell me your thoughts on it, but keep keep detailed notes, keep those receipts, keep those text messages, keep the things that you need just in case anything starts to go south. You need proof, which the other option would be don't date at all or avoid people unless you are very, very certain that you're vetting the situation very well. But no matter what you do with any interaction with anybody, even if it's a coworker or something, let's just remove dating from the table and say it's just a coworker or somebody else that you've encountered. Make sure you're keeping track of what you're doing, which that's the unfortunate society that we live in. I mean, it's the disease that's kind of infected it, where at any given point you could be accused of something that you've never even done, but you have to keep your receipts and keep yourself kind of in line to make sure that you're watching your back at all times. And I hate to say that that's the state that our society has kind of degenerated into, but it is. Let's just be real here. That is the state of it. This is not complaining. This is, if you don't want to hear about this, you're just in denial of reality. If you want to complain that this subject is being talked about by me and other people, you just don't want to face reality and you want to live in a fantasy world. That's what we're living in right now, is if you don't watch your back, keep your receipts, and make sure that you know you can prove certain things when it comes to interactions with people, especially people of the opposite sex, then at least you're safe. There's nothing wrong with outsmarting what could potentially happen to you and having good barriers and safeguards. There's just nothing wrong with that. And I was going to follow up on another story that caught my eye today that was just mind-blowing. I follow a lot of stuff as I'm going to make sure that you understand this is a separate topic. And this is just kind of some of these times where we talk at night, it's just going to be me talking. I'm not going to outline and give you 5 steps to this and 3 steps to that. Sometimes we just have to talk. So one of the other stories that caught my attention, and as many of you have probably been following all the incredible amounts of fraud and corruption and just, in my opinion, treason that's happened in our government. One story that absolutely just blew my mind, I was kind of I wouldn't say shocked, just a confirmed suspicion. As I'm watching an undercover crew in Los Angeles, they're basically doing a story where they're watching employees from the LA Homeless Authority, I think it's what they're called. LAHSA, I think is what they're called, LAHSA. And I could have said that wrong, but this is easy enough to look up. There's a local news station there that does investigative reporting, and they're not really, don't seem to be super concerned about the politics. They're just going ahead and reporting on this stuff. And they were literally watching these employees throw food they had just received, packages and big boxes of food, and vacuum sealed packages, fresh fruit, all sorts of stuff, boxes of this stuff into dumpsters that they had just received, instead of giving it out to the homeless and going back and basically collecting even more money of, I think it's some $800 million, if not more, from the federal government to feed homeless people and help take care of people, especially in LA where they need it. And they're literally catching them on camera throwing all this fresh food away and directly confronting these employees. And the employees are not going to talk because obviously they've been directed to do so that more tax dollars can be collected and none of the homeless are getting fed. The corruption is astounding, and I would love to say it surprises me, but I have to say it really doesn't. I'm expecting that there's going to be more and more and more of this as time goes on. And I don't know how many of you have heard this story or watched anything about it. If you haven't, go take a look and look it up. You can find it on YouTube. After I initially saw it in another place, I found it actually on YouTube and went ahead and watched it, and it was pretty incredible. So, at any rate, that's enough ranting for tonight. And I look forward to talking to all of you soon. As always, like, subscribe, make sure you comment. I want to hear about your stories and your experiences as well. And hit the notification bell because I'm going to keep putting up videos, and I want to keep expanding this community and keep talking with everybody. So that's pretty much it for tonight. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon.